What's up? Today we are looking at how I got the tone for both goat and goose and some other crap around that. It's by far the most common question that I've had other than requests for other Polyphia songs. If you guys want to learn anything other than Polyphia, please let me know. If you've got any questions at all, please let me know. I'm currently working on John Petrucci's stuff, but I'm literally open to anything else. But I, once again, don't want this to be a Polyphia only channel. First things first. So what I use for all my recording, all my everything, is Ableton. Because I'm also into electronic music, I've bought native instruments. Now, if you don't have this stuff, that's okay. If you don't have Ableton, that is totally okay. What I'm going to do is show you exactly what I used for goose, and then I'm going to show you how I recreated it with the total stock standard stuff in Ableton, and actually, I think I've got a better result through my recreation than I have through the one that I used for the video. So if you have native instruments, open up your guitar rig and find Rockabilly Crunch. Now, things may be slightly different with your Rockabilly Crunch because I have made some tweaks here. Just make sure that all the knobs are correct. Everything here is switched on and working, and the tone wouldn't sound the same without it. So here's my goat sound. Obviously, my goat needs practice. Now, the only other thing to consider other than this is, yes, this guitar does have humbuckers, but it has a push-pull pot, which basically means that I can do single coil or humbucker setup. I have it set to the single coil setting because it sounds like a single coil. Sounds the way it sounds. I think I actually used a compressor to bring the volume up of that, but that would be about it. So that is goat. Now we'll move on to goose. I'm going to close this, but I'll open them up so you can compare them soon. So once again, for goose, this is built off the Rockabilly just with some tweaks, and in a minute I'll show you the differences that I had. I'll change over to the goose channel. As you can hear straight away, they are kind of different, but they're definitely from the same source. So what's goose? Okay, and then now that we've heard both of those, let's bring up goat as well so you can compare. So I have pre-saved these. Once again, if you're not using Guitar Rig, this is not really going to apply to you, except for the way that I've got the chain set up. So, and what I mean by that is, as you can see, I've got a tube screamer or a tube screamer simulator on the first row here. The settings are slightly different. On goat, I've got less volume, less tone, but way more drive. On goose, of course, I have more volume, a lot more tone, but nearly no drive. Then I've got a compressor because obviously I wanted to compress that signal right after the distortion pedal, right before the amp. I guess I wanted to just give it a bit more drive into the amp so that it sounded good. Once again, I don't know why I chose these. It just what happened, and I'm looking at stuff that is like 6+ months old. So what I was doing then is different to what I do now, which is why I've got the recreate section of this part. But obviously, seems that the normal and the brilliance are set for the same. The treble's set higher on goat, the bass is set lower on goat, and the tone cut is set at 0. Once again, just copy those settings. Next thing to consider, there are slightly different settings on the compressor, but most important is the chain. So on goose, I've got the tube screamer, the compressor, then the amp head. On goat, I've got the tube screamer, the amp head, and then the compressor. And then I've got the same cabinet. I've got a ribbon 121 for goat, and I've got a dynamic 421 for goose. And then I've got a delay and a reverb. These settings are identical through both. They are both important. So this just basically gives it a bit of space around it. Now, these are both pretty subtle effects. They're not strong at all. So if I take off the delay, it just doesn't have as much kind of air around it. Same as with the reverb. See, it kind of feels like it's in a room there. Kind of feels like it's dead there. Equally. So hear how it kind of slaps back there. Take away that. Really dead, really dry. So that's kind of that. Each pieces of this puzzle is important, but none of them are necessary. So don't think that just because I don't have a tube screamer doesn't mean you can't do this. But depending on the sound you want is really going to depend on what you need. Now, with Polyphia, they definitely use a very compressed, very clean sound, but it is not as clean as you think, which is why these sounds are so dirty. Now, this is actually probably the most important part of this video, is I was not trying to replicate their sound. I was trying to get a unique sound that worked in their mix so that it sounded like it belonged. It was obvious, so you could definitely hear it, but it wasn't totally different. You know, you can't go into a song like that covering it with a John Petrucci tone. It's just not going to work. It's going to sound ridiculous. So what I was trying to do was get a sound that was similar, but had enough unique qualities that you could hear it without me having to make it way too loud or you losing it. Because if I had to match their tone perfectly, you wouldn't have been able to hear me playing at all, and that's useless for an instructional video. With that in mind, I was not trying to copy. I was trying to find a place in their mix that I could exist that would allow you to hear me better. So this is a totally different approach to what you may want. However, it's the approach that I have because I need it. Now that we've got that far, we're onto the recreate section. What I've done here is I've just tried to kind of copy what I was doing in the guitar rigs there, and let's just do a little quick analysis for that. Whatever program you're using to record should have standard plugins. Now we know that this is an overdrive pedal. We know that this is a compressor. We know that this is an amp. This is a cabinet simulator. This is a delay. This is a reverb. These are all very basic effects that should exist inside your digital audio workstation, DAW. It doesn't matter if it's GarageBand, Mixcraft, Pro Tools, whatever, they've all got it. What I've basically done is tried to get my chain working. And once again, do not feel the need to buy a guitar rig. Do not feel the need to buy Ableton. You do not necessarily need them. If you've got something that's satisfactory already, then just keep using that. Now, actually, for the first time today, I've decided to put this tuner in, and this is a great little tuner. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm going to start using it as my primary tuner from now on. Of course, I've got no volume. This is the tone. This is the tone that I came up with in the end. Coming in a bit hot, so I'll turn it down. Okay. That to me sounds like a much more Polyphia tone. I was actually playing around with this earlier and I was thinking, this sounds cool. This sounds like something that could exist on an album. What I've done is I've chucked a tuner in here because Guitar Rig comes with a tuner in it. I really like this tuner. It's incredibly accurate and it makes sense to have this always active. Even if I'm using Guitar Rig, to have a tuner in there before, I don't have to have this open to be able to tune. It's going to always be doing it for me. See, I know if my guitar goes out of tune very quickly without having to have this open. Anyway, back to that. I'm going to keep that there. I reckon that's great. First thing I've got, in Ableton, this plugin is literally called pedal, right? Pedal probably means distortion pedal of some capacity. The options are overdrive, distort, or fuzz. I've chosen overdrive, and I've cranked the bass way down. That's pretty much all there is to that. I've also turned the bass down on an EQ because there was heaps of bass coming through. So I'll give you an example. You may not be able to hear that, I don't know, but there is just a ridiculous amount of bass in there that I wanted to get rid of. All right, and this gives us our sound. Then next I've got an amp head. I've chosen the Blues, 50% gain. I haven't touched anything else. It worked. Then I've got a cabinet, which is a 412 speaker, near on axis. There's three options here. So I've just chosen the best one that I've thought works. There's the option of a condenser or a dynamic mic, and you can have, a mono or a dual output. Then I've added in the delay, as we've had here. Then I've added in the reverb, as we've got here. Once again, both pretty subtle, both on less than 30%. And then finally, to top it all off, I've got a compressor, because once again, the Polyphia sound is very compressed. So let's have a quick listen to that. And once again, pickups are really important here. I find with this tone, Goose sounds really good here on the front pickups. It just sounds really warm and pretty. And then I found Goat sounds best on the bridge pickups because Goat to me has a bit more of an aggressive type of sound to it. So I chucked them on the bridge pickups. Okay, once again, it doesn't matter if you have humbuckers because it doesn't matter if you don't have all of these plugins. You can do whatever you want, and so long as you get a sound that is usable, then great. And I've personally, once again, I think I could use this sound on an album. It just kind of has a really cool quality to it. What I'm going to do now is actually start taking away some of these things so that you can see what each of them are doing. You can bugger off. Unfortunately with Ableton, so it's not that obvious. This little red symbol shows that we're on this track, but because I've recorded from all three in this one video, we've got all three, they're now red. So anyway, I can't make this bigger. This is what we're going to have to live with. So tuner, that's redundant at this point. Pedal, let's take that away and see what happens. See how much that's adding to it, right? Now that is, at this point, a pretty large chunk of the sound. Now let's take the EQ we've heard before. Let's take away the amp. Once again, a huge chunk of the sound. Let's take away the cab. That was horrible. Let's take away the delay. Right, it gives it a bit more space. Once again, the reverb. Right, you hear the delays of they kind of snap in there. The delay and the reverb together give a nice roomy sound. It's a very spring reverby sound. Now, once again, these are just the most basic stuff that I could find in Ableton, and I've tried to make a sound that works. With each of these, copy the setting. Don't discount anything. Just because it's free, just because it's cheap, doesn't mean it's bad. You just got to use it in a way that makes it work. You know, say for example, the biggest thing to keep in mind with this is if, say, you've got too much gain, like let's say that we're here, you're like, oh, it's too much. You know, don't just all or nothing it. Don't go straight to the lead. Use subtlety, use a little bit of, try a little bit less instead of, 10 or nothing, because often when you try all or nothing, it just doesn't work the way that you want it to. Anyway, that is me for this week. I tried to keep this video short, but as normally happens with me, I end up on a tangent and the videos come out being 20 minutes long like last week's video. I did not expect that. So I hope this was useful to you, and I hope that this video has helped you think of ways to start actually approaching the tone that you want. I honestly believe that it's more in the fingers than it is in the tools that you use, because as you can see here, the more expensive option that is definitely more flexible, which is Guitar Rig, produced in what I would consider a worse sound for the song, but it was more practical because, once again, I wanted to fit around the Polyphia sound. I didn't want to recreate that perfectly. However, I feel like what I've done with this stock standard stuff in Ableton, I feel like that is actually usable, and I'm not unhappy with that sound. Play with it, have fun, use the tools that are available to you. Don't feel this need to go out and buy hundreds of dollars of equipment, because every single time I've bought something that like this is the answer to all my prayers, it's never been. I've always been let down because it's not perfect. All right, you guys have a good one, and I will see you next week, hopefully with the Oddfather solo fully laid out and done for you. I still got to learn how to play it properly. So anyway, see you guys then. Bye.